Here we
Wait,
go.
wait,
Wait,
I just heard it.
you think you
Wait,
got it?
I think I do. It just started
wait,
going
I heard it
green.
come through the computer.
Here we go. I think it's working now.
We got
I
it
can
working
hear
there?
you through the computer now.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
Wait, wait, I don't know if you got it here through the, wait,
Is it working?
I hear
Can
it through my computer,
can you
but
hear
I
us,
don't
ladies and
hear it
gentlemen?
through my phone.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're trying to connect.
So he can hear you now.
It's
We're
weird
coming
that
from
I
another
found,
dimension. Ladies and gentlemen,
wow.
it's tough traveling through time like this, but I'll be here in just a minute. Are we almost there?
Christy says it's good.
Thank God. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, things are crazy right now in the future, and Captain Kirk says to say
Oh
hello.
my goodness.
So it was nuts there for a minute, but my resident genius figured it out, and
Ah,
we've been having trouble here. I've got a special guest for you in just a few minutes. We've been having trouble here for about 30 or 40 minutes, but I didn't really care because I don't know what to do anyway. And my guest is a genius. Matt is obviously a genius, and I'm a moron. And I just know I talk into here, and somehow you hear it, and then I hear something in this, and so I didn't care. I just kept sending out a couple of texts telling people I was going to have a guest on and be with us, and then it comes and it doesn't work. But like I say, things seem to be working out well in the future. Welcome again to another episode of the Blue Plate Special. I should have known things were going to be kind of weird today because I wasn't fishing. And when I crossed the Perdido Pass Bridge coming up to the studio, I looked out and I thought, I hope Ty Bullard is fishing with his boys today. I mean, you can social distance in a little boat with your kids. And I mean, it's 63 degrees here in Orange Beach, or it was this morning, and bright, sunny, beautiful. The Gulf was as slick as a farm pond. It was just absolutely beautiful. But then I talked to him later, and no, he's not fishing. But what a waste of a beautiful Gulf. But I thought, I got to thinking going over, I know what I'm going to talk about. By the way, when you see this little notification thing come up on your screen, you guys, please click that so that when we go live, or when we try to go live, or when we go live without sound, or when we do sound without audio, you'll know it's happening. And Facebook will tell you that we're live. And so at some point, we're going to figure out how to notify you even if you're sleeping or not on Facebook or whatever. But if you'll click that notification button, it will tell you. And also, if you don't mind
it's coming
sharing,
through loud and clear on my
all
laptop
this
now.
that's going on today, share to your Facebook group. So I'm thinking, coming up here, I think I know what we're going to do today. I think I know what we're going to do. And I think it's going to be very conversational. I think it's going to be very interesting. I've got a couple of topics that I'm thinking about, dealing with. I've got my Barney Fife Warhol T-shirt on, and so I'm thinking this is going to be a good day. And then I get into a conversation. I talk for 53 minutes with some of the wisest people, probably the wisest couple I know. I mean, no offense to everybody that I know, but I talked to Bill and Gloria Gaither for a long time this morning, and so then I'm thinking, well, totally different topic. This is going to be serious today. I think this is going to be serious. I think I've got some serious things to say and to talk to about everybody. I think we've got some life-changing things. And then I get to the studio, and I get on my computer and I start to share Mark Lowry, and it's 10 o'clock and he's not on. Then it's 10:02 and 10:04 and he's not on. And so I text Mark and I said, aren't you live? I'm trying to share you. He said, no, I'm not live today. I'm only doing Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And it's a Thursday and I'm already bored. And I said, well, Mark, why don't you come on with me? I'll be on at 12:15, the Blue Plate Special. And Mark says, okay. And so then I know, it won't be serious. I'm going to have Mark. So we're going to get Mark in just a minute. But Betty, hi from Troy. And I'm glad you're taking a break from gardening today. It is a beautiful day, and yep, we are praying for our country. Thanks for all you guys who are coming on right now, and for those of you who went through this beginning weirdness with us. But you know, I think there's something now. Now listen to me here. I think there is something about live that is. It does something. It captures people's attention like nothing else. I think it really does. Let me see some more comments. Let me see what we got. Teresa Richardson. It's cool here in Georgia too. Good. Whitman's. It's afternoon in South Africa. Wow. Well, happy afternoon. How's our afternoon going to be since you've already gotten there? Melody. You missed Mark this morning. Well, don't worry. I'll have him here in just a minute. Macy says she missed Mark too. Let's see, Roger. Good to see you. So here, I think there's something about live that captures people's attention. Hey, Karen Wacker. Ha! I miss seeing you. I think there's something about live that is very different, and I think that is why we're looking very seriously at starting to do the podcast live and a lot of other stuff live, because I think that there is an additional audience. I think there are people who are NASCAR fans, people who watch pro bull riding, and I think they like to watch live. Because it's not that, I might necessarily say something, but I think you can look at me and say, we got a good chance of a wreck here. I mean, if we just kind of keep watching Andy a little bit, there's a good chance that there's a disaster going to happen. And so I think we gather a lot of people that way, and that's fine. Speaking of, you want to double your odds? Okay, watch this. I want to get one of my best friends on with me now, one of my wisest friends, one of my funniest friends, one of my longest time friends, one of my friends that my family loves the most. I don't know how else, but you know him in a bunch of different ways. Mark is he's much more of the speaker. Mark is a communicator. Mark is a very deep thinker. Mark also wrote Mary, Did You Know? So there's a life's work right there. You could have hit the planet, written one song and left, and we'd remember you forever. But please welcome Mark Lowry. Mark, are you there?
I am here.
He's got the guy from Up on the screen.
Hey, buddy.
Do you see my T-shirt?
He's got the guy from Up.
And don't I see if they ever make
I think that is
movie,
you. That is you, Mark.
I want to play the part.
And I've said this for a while. I mean, because I've known you for a long time. I've known you when you were a little kid. And now I look at you now, and every time I look at you, I go, it's the guy from Up. It's the guy from the movie Up. And so you have yourself on your T-shirt.
You're getting old when your 10-year-old niece looks at you and says, you look like that old man in the Up movie. And I just own it.
Your niece goes, I love your movie. And you ought to. Hey, you wrote Mary, Did You Know? You could say, yeah, that was me. They animated me a little bit, but that was me. I mean, I would claim it. Yeah. People, isn't it weird? And have you experienced this through the years? As much television as you have done, and as I have done, do people come up to you sometimes and they mistake where they saw you, and they say, God, I love... Because people would come up to me, and they, especially back when I was doing comedy, and they go, I watch you on The Tonight Show, and I think you're just like one of my favorite people, and I love it. And I go, oh, thank you so much. And I was never on The Tonight Show. You ever have that happen?
Well, I've had people mistake me for Ken Davis, but never like where they, I mean, I guess I'm pretty, my head's so big, it's hard to forget, I don't know. I've never had him. Ken Davis and I have been, Ken, don't you?
Yeah, sure. I love Ken. Yeah. And do you remember from the old Nashville Now, and actually I think Mike is a member of the Grand Ole Opry now, but do you remember Mac from Gleason, Tennessee? What's his last name? Mike
Was it Mike Gleason?
No, he was from Gleason, Tennessee. Mike talked like this. Come on, somebody, Nancy, Jerry, somebody will tell us. Mike, if you're watching, oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember your last name. I'm so sorry. But
Well,
somebody will know.
There's only 308 watching, so let's hope he's not watching.
Yeah, I know. Well,
Wait, we just went to 311. Somebody called him.
Matt, the keyboard player for the Gaither Vocal Band, is also from Gleason, Tennessee. And Mike took him onto the Grand Ole Opry when Matt was a little kid. But Mike from Gleason, Tennessee, married to a girl named Sweetie. And he was always on Ralph Emery's show. And he was on at the same time.
Hysterical.
Yeah, hysterical. And he was on at the same time I was on. I can't believe I can't. Come on, somebody. Tell us Mike's name. Mike Snyder. And Mike was so country, and he embraced it, and he played the banjo, and at the time I was, here I was on Nashville Now all the time, but I didn't consider myself a country comedian. And of course, all the country people did not consider me a country comedian, and all the pop people would see me on Nashville Now, and they said he's a country comedian.
You know what, though? I remember you being on Nashville Now, and I remember you being hysterical. That's what I remember. Well, and then I remember you coming to do stuff for Gaither, and you were again hysterical. So it's just, and what I love about what you do, it's just storytelling. It's not like you tell 3 jokes, change the subject, tell 3 jokes, and change it. Like comedians do, like Jerry Seinfeld. That's what he does. He'll tell 3 jokes, change.
Yeah, so God knows he's been a failure. So.
Oh, well, listen, he's amazing at what he does. But he's a
I know, but you're right. That's not what I do. But that's not, see, you and I, maybe that's why I like what you do so much, because you have the dimension, you can sing, and you didn't even want to be a comedian. You wanted to be a singer.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the deal. I was studying business at Liberty Baptist College, and the Lord spoke to me. And for a Baptist to say that, it was the Lord, because he doesn't speak to us.
What do you sound like, by the way? Do you have an accent?
Well, it was actually, yes, he sounds a lot like me. He speaks in a very Texas accent to me. I think he speaks to each of us in our own dialect. But it was in my spirit. It wasn't. But the Lord changed my whole direction. What happened was that day I went from going to a business degree to getting a youth degree to get out so I could start doing what I felt like God had called me to do, which was go into music, because I thought I was a singer. And then I'd go to these independent Baptist churches, and they'd sit there with their arms folded, and they wouldn't clap, because that's giving glory to men. They wouldn't shout, because they're afraid someone might think they're doing it in another language. But they would laugh. They would laugh. And that's how I knew they were listening. All I cared about was, are they listening?
Right.
Because if they're not listening, what good is what you have to say, So I found out that humor was a good way to disarm your audience so you could share something eternal with them.
Say that again. I like that.
I said, and we got a delay going. If I feel like I'm on NBC, you know how they always talk, and then the guy finally hears it. No, what did I say?
You said that
to me. I'm hearing all this for the first time myself, Andy.
You know what?
I'm a talk thinker.
I know exactly what you talk about. I think while I'm talking, I think out loud, sometimes to my detriment, because sometimes I'll be dealing with somebody who's like a potential business client, and I'll think through something and let something out, and then I leave them, and I think, wow, I probably won't get hired now because they got everything they need, But
the beautiful thing is that while I was early on in those independent Baptist churches, I was able to hone a craft that I never intended to have, which is storytelling or humor. and some called it comedy. But the word comedian always kind of frightened me, because if you say, here comes a comedian, then they expect you to be funny.
Right.
But if you tell them you're a singer from Jerry Falwell's school, when I first got started, I would go in there and open with, in this very room, there's quite enough love for one like me. And they'd all be sitting there, and I could see it in their eyes. It'd start to glaze over like, oh, dear Lord, are we going to sit through 15 minutes of this? And then I would start talking, and they weren't expecting me to be funny. And so you catch them off guard. I think it's a much easier way to do it than to say, and now welcome the most incredible comedian. Well, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, I mean, now
Yeah.
I cringe when I hear somebody introduce me and they say, for years he was a comedian, and you can still hear him on Sirius XM radio on the comedy channels. And so I just cringe, because I'm like, this would be so much easier today if you wouldn't tell them any of that. But you're right. And so
Yeah.
but the first time I saw you, actually the first time we saw each other, you tell me that I did not know I saw you.
Someone wrote it down, make them laugh to make sure they're listening, so you can share something eternal with them.
Yeah, that's
So you can
that's
share
great.
with them something eternal. Yeah.
I'll be going back and watching
Yeah, and
this.
that's-
Carol
it
Woodward
works.
Steele says hello.
Oh,
And
I
we
know.
got-
I'm looking at the comments too.
And
Laura
Sandy
Falk
Pratt.
is
Sandy
out
Pratt
there.
says hello. Hey, Sandy.
Josiah Gentry.
The first time I saw you
Got all the
perform
comments.
was way before the Gaithers, and I was fascinated, because it was in a big arena, and Sandy Pratt may have been there actually. I was in a big arena and watching you, and I was fascinated because I knew this was somebody very, very, very different, and you sang, you talked about your family, and it fascinated me, because I was at a point in my life where I was trying to transition from comedy. I guess that's what people called me, a comedian. And I remember I loved Jerry Clower. Jerry was very nice to me, and so was Minnie Pearl. All those guys are just very cool, so nice, that whole Nashville crowd. But I remember sitting with Jerry one day and asking him, what do entertainers talk about? They said, well, where are you going? Where have you been? Who have you seen lately? And Jerry told me where he was the night before. And I remember thinking, I cannot be 70 years old, being the opening act for some 22-year-old country music person with 2 hits. I just didn't think that's where God wanted me to be. And Jerry had already done everything. He was the second guy to sell 1 million comedy albums. He was, the first one was Bob Newhart, by the way. And Jerry had done everything. And so Jerry was doing what he wanted to do at that point. But I was looking at that, and I was wondering if that was as good as it would get for me. And so that was when I really started looking at other ways of delivering content, and you fascinated me. And I don't even know if you remember that, but that was way before the Gaither stuff. I don't know if you remember that time in your life that much, but
Well, from 80 to 88, I graduated from college in 1980, and Roy Morgan. Did you know Roy Morgan?
no, I knew Lowry Morgan.
Okay, Roy. Yeah, well, Roy Morgan owns Premier Productions, which is a big outfit now. But
Okay.
anyway, he graduated from Liberty a year after me, but he called me and said, I want to book you. Well, right out of college in 1980, Roy Morgan booked me in 43 concerts in like 41 days in independent Baptist churches. That was Roy Morgan. And he was my booking agent until Oh, until he outgrew me. And you know those big super kid festivals they do with thousands of kids? He does all that, does
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
and he's just one of the greatest guys you'd ever want to know. But that's, if it hadn't been for God putting the right people in my way also, let me just say, I would never have called a church and said, "Would you have me?" I don't have that in me to
Yeah,
sell
I still
myself
don't.
on the phone to a pastor. But Roy could. He'd take the Baptist Bible Fellowship Directory and he planned it on a map and booked me from Lynchburg, Virginia. About every 200 miles, I was in another independent Baptist church. And I would sing. Those people didn't know me from Adam's House Cat. And I would set up my sound system. I'd put my I finally quit letting the little old man at the back of the church run the tracks because he took too long. So I
Yeah,
started running it from the Lord's Supper table. I put my tracks on the Lord's Supper. I had a foot switch. Listen to this. I had a foot switch where we would turn that reverb on so I'd sound like Johnny Mathis. And then when I talked, that foot switch would be hit and I'd turn that reverb off and I'd talk and then I would drive alone every 200 miles, right? So I'm thinking of new things to talk about that night. The radio wasn't that good back in those days. There's, AM and FM. That was it.
right.
And I didn't like to listen to music. I like to think and listen to preaching or talking. I love that. That keeps me awake.
I'm
But
still the same
I'd
way.
get
Audiobooks, talking.
absolutely. And I'd get to laughing, pull the car over, write something down. I'd use it that night. And then those became routines. And I didn't even know what I was doing, really.
Right.
And then Gaither, the same thing. When I joined him in 88. So that event you were talking about had to be between 1980 and 1988. Because when I joined the Gaithers in 88, Bill would have me do one of my monologues and he would interrupt me. And then I would get flustered and sass him back. And that's how that all started, the back and forth with that.
Yeah, you guys, let me just tell you something. If you want to see, I mean, this is still, and I know you're probably sick of it, Mark, but if you want to see what I just consider one of the funniest things ever, look up Mark on YouTube. Look up Mark Lowry, Bill Gaither, Jesus on the Main Line. And I'm just telling you, even today, if I'm in the room and like we're on a cruise or something like that, and Gaither starts that, I leave. I leave from back with everybody, and I go and I'll sit in the front. I'll sit in the aisle and watch that. That is the funniest thing to me, and that's nothing in the world but you. I know that developed over time. I mean, what you do that's on that film, I know that took a long time to develop, and it takes something very special to do what you do on that. Because if you're watching that, you guys, what you're watching is it's not spontaneous. It is the illusion of spontaneity that somebody with Mark's genius can pull off. It's the illusion of spontaneity. You think they can make it look like he can make it look like you're seeing this for the first time, but it's developed over time.
Well, but Andy, let me interrupt you just for a second. You do know that we don't need new material. We need a new audience.
Right.
And it's the truth. It's the truth with when you have a good joke, right? And you want to tell your next friend, it's as much fun telling your next friend as it was telling your first friend. A good joke, right? I mean, you're excited and it is fresh. It feels like it's spontaneous. But that particular thing that we did that ended up with me putting my shoe in his face. I mean, really where it ended, but was never recorded, was I was on the floor with my foot trying to reach up under his nose. My back's on the floor. I mean, it had evolved to such a ridiculous thing where I finally had to
him
leave.
with his eyes closed, going, Jesus.
Oh yeah, the whole time.
I mean, it is unbelievable. Sharon Orr, Carolyn Horton Robinson, thank you guys for being here. Mark, there are people just coming in like crazy. And I'm sorry I can't say hey to everybody. I'm having such a good time talking to Mark, and I hope you guys are too. I know you guys are too. Mark, have you ever had something that you pulled off the side of the road, you wrote down, and you think, this is going to kill him. This is just going to kill him. And it just kind of fell flat. You went, And you, and maybe today you still think it's funny, but people just don't get it.
Well, I probably would if I could remember what it was, because what I would do, I forget it quick. If because once the audience tells you that's not funny, I don't want to try it again.
Yeah, I don't
because I hate cricket.
And I think at this point, I kind of believe, maybe this gives myself too much credit, but I kind of think at this point, I can think through it with God and be quiet and think through it, and I can kind of know what works and what's gonna work, and it will if I do it. But used to, when I was doing the comedy thing, and that was all I was doing. I mean, there would be times I would think of something, and I wouldn't know why. Why did that not work? And it's God. And you're right. I wouldn't do it again, but I did. I remember doing one time, and I gotta admit, I still think this is funny. But even when I tell people, because occasionally I think of this, and I'll tell people, and nobody thinks this is funny. But I'll tell you what it was. Is that I said that I thought that a deck of cards was the greatest survival tool that you could ever have. Because you could be in the middle of nowhere with no phone, no weapons, no way to get out, no help, nobody for miles around. And all you have to do is start playing solitaire, and within 5 minutes, somebody will be looking over your shoulder going, no, put that one there. I just always thought that was funny, but you're kind to laugh.
Well, I think it's cute. You know what I've learned too, I think, see if you think this is true about humor. The weaker the punchline, the shorter the setup. If the punchline will slay you, you can take time setting it up.
Yeah.
But if you take a long time setting up a joke and you get there and it's a little, the audience will turn on you.
Yeah.
I'll get mad. Don't waste my time. You take a long time to set me up, you better have a killer. But if it's a little short set, there's a lot of corny things you can get by with if you don't waste their time setting it up.
Right. Here, let me try. I'm trying to think of things that I want the guys listening today. I would love to tell them that there are things that I think that you and I probably have only noticed, and we don't tell anybody. Right? I mean, because of what we do, there's no reason to tell. It's not that we're keeping anything from anybody. We just don't tell them. And here's one of them. Tell me if you think this is true. You've probably thought this too, but you just don't tell anybody. People tell us jokes a lot. People come up and they say, let me tell you this. Do you know have you noticed what people say to other people when the joke is not funny?
When their joke is not funny?
Yeah. Have you noticed what people say to other people when somebody tells us a joke, or somebody tells them a joke and the joke's not funny? Because if it's funny, they laugh. But have you noticed what people say when it's not funny? Here's what they say.
I don't know.
Here's what they say. They go, that's funny. That's funny. Because if it's funny, people laugh. But if it ain't funny, you go, ha, that's funny. Is that funny? That's funny.
But there are times I'll be hearing someone kill it, right? I mean, someone funny. And I am not guffawing, I think, because I'm analyzing.
Yeah, I know.
I'm thinking, wow, that is really good. man, the way they thought that through. Or if I see a speech where they do that thing at the end where they button it up with what they started with, they'll tell a story and then they'll go away from that and you think they've, forgotten. And then at the end, they just tell something else that just ties it all back together. I think that's masterful.
Yeah. I think that's great.
And then
Back that up, Matt.
And then
Go
other
ahead.
times other times it will make me just buckle over and laugh too. I don't know what the difference is. But if I say, ooh, that was funny, it isn't that I'm putting them down. I'm thinking, whoa, that was good.
Sherry Oswald Mueller asks, do you think that younger people have a different sense of humor now than people did in the past?
I'd say, yeah. I think humor's changed, like The Office. Look at The Office. That was
Right.
new humor when it showed up because there wasn't a laugh track. There wasn't a live audience. It was uncomfortable humor. David Letterman, when he came on after Johnny Carson was the guy for years, I didn't like him at first because it had such an edge to it and somebody was left bleeding when he got through. It felt like
uncomfortable. Where Carson was always that guy. Carson was always that guy you felt like, God, I'd like to go out to eat with him afterwards. I mean, he may not have been that guy, but that's the guy you felt like you were watching. Keep going. And then after Letterman.
And then Letterman came along, and that was a new kind of humor. I think humor does evolve. I mean, well, look at Bob Hope, all right? I mean, you worked with him, but I got to meet him one time because of Martha Bolton. She worked for him as a writer, and so she took me to his house to meet him, which was a thrill. But I say that all great humor eventually turns to corn.
Explain that.
Because his stuff now, huh?
Explain that. I think I know what you're talking about, but unpack that.
It gets corny. It gets corny. I mean,
it is
what
now.
Used to kill, what used to just kill in the 50s, you listen to it now, I mean, some of it can kill. Some of it holds up. But then some of it is just, they laughed easier. But there was less vying for their attention. I mean, you can turn on Netflix, hear the brilliant comedians of the day or whatever. I guess.
Know who I think, holds up? I think the Smothers Brothers hold up in a way that people of their era did not.
I agree.
I still talk to those guys every now and then, and Austin and Adam really like the Smothers Brothers. I mean, you can listen to them. In fact, if you let's see, go on YouTube and watch. There's a time they were with the Boston Pops and doing it's dueling banjos, and I bet you I saw that, I don't know, 30 or 40 times in person. And I still look at that. I still go on YouTube and look at that sometimes. And I wish you could be there closer. The camera's not quite as close as I would like it to be. But that's one of the most brilliant pieces of comedy. And if you knew, if you knew Tommy and Dick, Tommy was the one who acted
I wish
like
I
the
did.
idiot.
I wish you'd introduce me to them.
I will. Listen, I will. Tommy's still living out in California and got a vineyard, and Dick is living down in Sarasota
and
area.
Josiah Gentry on the comments said that who's on first.
That still
you remember
works.
that bit?
Oh yeah, baby.
That
still works.
That's genius. Yeah,
that still works. Kelly Harenko says, "Who is your favorite comedian of all time?" That's hard to say, isn't it? I mean, because it's like Desiree says that some of comedy is tied to the times, or it's historical, so it doesn't always translate to today. You know what I think that is, Desiree? Tell me if you agree with this, Mark. Somebody asked before if younger kids, different sense of humor. I think that people have to be culturally on the same page. They have to be culturally, if I am speaking to people who are not culturally literate, I'm dead. right? If I'm talking to somebody that the only thing they really know is like the football scores from last weekend, which is why I'm not good. People think, oh, let Andy talk to our children. Let Andy go talk to the 8-year-olds. I'm horrible. I'm horrible with that.
Me too.
Because culturally they do not know what I know, and so I don't have any stuff
Yeah.
that's, it's like the first time
Yeah.
I ever went. You remember
Years
that?
ago we did.
Yeah, years ago we did. But you remember,
Yeah,
when
we
Kenny
were their
Rogers
age.
died. When Kenny Rogers died recently, I did a thing about one of the worst nights a comedian can ever have, and I put that out about being with him in Quebec one night when I had to go in and nobody could speak English, and that was horrible. But I had another night with Kenny on that same tour, and it was the very first night that I was taught a very valuable lesson right in the middle of it, and it just kind of scared me to death, but it taught me this cultural thing, and that was, here we are in Canada, very first night of the tour, and I'm in the middle of my thing, and I do this thing about, my dad used to say when Abraham Lincoln was a kid, Abraham Lincoln died, and I go into this thing, and right in the middle of this bit, I start thinking, oh my God, Abraham Lincoln wasn't their president. Do they kind of know who this is? It scared me because if you don't know who he is, it's not funny. And that's why we can't talk to kids, and be so
they
funny.
know?
Right. Toady
Did they know who he was?
Yes, they did. Thank God. Thank God. Because I was sweating bullets before I ever got to the punchline on that.
Oh my goodness.
See, George Burns, Carolyn Fickle says George Burns was funny, and he was, but he's another one that is kind of like Bob Hope. If you look at that now, it's not as funny, I guess.
Yeah.
Sarah Jane
I don't
Wimber
know what Gracie was pretty funny,
Who?
and he, Gracie, his wife.
Yeah. Say goodnight, Gracie.
Yeah.
Good night, Gracie.
There's a delay on this thing. You are going to have to get that figured out because our timing is off. 'Cause I'll say something and then a few seconds, and we're all about timing, me and you. We got to have correct timing. Do you sense the distance? I wish you could see. You don't see me.
Well, I'm dying for you to be here or me to be there. And you know what,
Yeah.
Mark? I'm coming up on a time that I'm going to have to be out of the studio for a couple of weeks. And I want, there's a button we can push and you can guest host. You can guest host the Blue Plate Special a couple of days. I wish, at some point I want you here so we can be together. But sometime, if you would, I know everybody would love to have you just kind of take over this show. And I'm doing
Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 10 a.m. And then I'm gonna come in on Saturdays and Sunday just randomly. I'm gonna come in to check on my people at over there, at the YouTube channel and at the Facebook and the Twitter. Right. And so I just love checking in on them. And then we sing hymns, old hymns from the church. And we just love on each other for about 40 minutes or an hour. And you know what? I just decided to go to Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And I may change it back to every day of the week if I don't like it. Because I think I miss them as much as they say they miss me.
Well, that's true.
The comments, when you read the comments, it just blesses you. Because they say, you brought light into my, made the pandemic bearable. For anyone to even think that is what a blessing that is.
I agree. And I'm the same way. And the days we don't do this, I'm like,
more.
By the way, Polly just put a comment in, and Polly said to tell you hello and that Carol Burnett was the best.
Oh, she was. Carol Burnett show. Did you not love the Carol Burnett show?
I loved it. And I think I loved her. She just seemed so so likable. But to me, and tell me if you're this way, in the past, my favorite comedians have not necessarily been the ones that are the funniest. My favorites are the ones that I just seem to like the most. I liked them. I mean, it's not that I don't enjoy.
Did you know them personally?
No, I didn't know Carol Burnett. I didn't know Johnny Carson.
Okay. So
But-
you just liked them,
But I liked
but you
them.
didn't think they were the funniest.
I didn't think they were the funniest. I think, in fact, to be honest with you, I think now you know Jeff Allen. Jeff Allen, I think Jeff is the greatest technical comedian I have ever seen. And when I say that, I mean, you know, we talk about the illusion of spontaneity. Jeff's timing, his material is like a song. And, you know, I'm a lot more loosey-goosey. You are too. And it's like somebody made a comment on you just a little bit ago coming through. I'm sorry I can't remember the name, but I thought it was great. And she said that that she has seen you several times. And there is the first song, the last thing. The first song, it was Patty Ann Killinger. She said, I've been to a lot of Mark's concerts. And he says he knows the first song, the last song, and in between, anything can happen. And I think that is
Right.
great. But, you know,
It's
the
an
funniest...
ADHD rabbit trail getting to it.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of me too. Comedian Mickey Bell, you know, and Mickey Bell proves you don't have to be vulgar to be funny.
But I bet if you go I love Jeff Allen, and I think he's brilliant, and I love his wife. I think, and I agree with you 100%. And I wonder if his show is identical from night to night,
Some parts of
from
it
beginning
are,
to end.
and I think some
I've not
parts of
seen
it.
him.
I think some parts of it are, and I think that you know, occasionally some parts of ours are, because I think they're. Have you known people that people go, they're so funny, man, they're just so funny. That's just the funniest. My cousin is so funny. My cousin should be a comedian. But you could talk to the cousin for a little while, and you would know the cousin couldn't be a comedian, because the cousin can be funny occasionally, but not consistently, because the cousin doesn't know where the setup is, have you heard people that can tell stories, but they can't tell them the same way twice? And there is a best way to tell every story. And so that's where, you know, I used to see Robin Williams on The Tonight Show, and it was hilarious to me that people would go, oh my gosh, he is so spontaneous. He's just so spontaneous. And you know, I'm thinking, yeah, he was spontaneous doing exactly the same thing 5 nights prior at the Comedy Store. So it's the illusion.
And also, one thing I learned from being on the Gaither Vocal Band bus, David Phelps is one of the funniest people that I've ever met. And he was hearing on the bus, we were sitting there one night with Russ Taff, and Russ was telling us all a story. And the story was dragging on and on and on, and it was going nowhere.
It's a singer for you. That's a singer for you.
Yeah. It's just more detail. And finally, David Phelps said, hey, Russ, a story has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. It's not all middle.
Oh my gosh. Who is the funniest? Who is? This is a hard question for you to answer, because we all have so many friends that are funny, and they're in so many different categories. But instead of asking you this, if you want to add on to this, I'll tell you my answer to the funniest person that I don't really know, and I don't really understand. I shared a dressing room with him one time, and I introduced him to Ricky Skaggs one time. But other than that, I don't really know him. But you know Emo Philips?
I've heard the name.
I still can't,
but I don't
after
know.
all these
Not
years,
familiar with-
I can't figure out if Emo has problems or if he's a genius, because he never comes out of this character. But you know, when GQ magazine a few years ago did they had their cover was the 75 greatest jokes of all time. Now, I mean, who did
Wow.
those, right? Emo Philips
Right.
had 3 of them. 3 of them.
Oh, I'd love to see that article.
I mean, but he is. I mean, I don't know how to describe Emo. He looks like he cut his hair himself, like with scissors, while he had his eyes closed.
Pandemic hair.
Yeah, I mean, I was walking through here's I introduced him to Ricky Skaggs when Ricky Skaggs and I were walking through the Opryland Hotel, and here comes this guy, and Ricky sees him before I do, and Ricky says, "Oh my God," and I look and I go, "Well, that's Emo Philips," and he said, "Who is that?" Well, he's walking toward us. Now, understand, here's a guy who has kind of long hair on the sides. Hair up here looks like it's been cut with scissors with his eyes closed. He's about 6'3", 150. Okay? He's got hard shoes on with no socks and no laces. Before that was a style. This is 25 years ago. And he has a pajama top on. He has plaid pants that are about that high above his shoes, and coming out of the bottoms of the plaid pants are the pajama bottoms. A belt that is like way too long, and he has on a trench coat. Now, he has his hands in the trench coat. Now, Emo, he talks like this. This is how he talks, and everything. It just pushes. But that's his whole bit, and he never comes out of that character. But his jokes. I was trying to think, like when I remember one where he did. I was in a bar the other night, going from stool to stool, trying to get lucky, but there wasn't any gum under any of them. I mean, here's one. I remember he said, I went up to a girl the other day and I said, hey, Foxy Mama, you and I could make beautiful music together. She said, yeah, prove it. So I pulled the hair on her mole real tight and went boom, 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 boom. I say, where do you come up with this stuff? Right? Here's one more. Matt's over here laughing. Here's one more from Emo. Then I'm going to tell you what he did to Ricky Skaggs. So here's one more from Emo. It was my nephew's birthday the other day, and I told him, for your birthday present, I'm going to give you 3 wishes. He said, thank you, Uncle Emo. And I grabbed him by the arm, and I went, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. And I put him down, and I said, let that be a lesson to you about the dangers of homonyms. I mean, that's just brilliant. That's just brilliant, right? So anyway, so he's coming toward us. Ricky and I are going this way. Emo has his hands in his, in his trench coat pockets, and Ricky's getting closer. He says, "You know him?" I said, "Yeah, just wait." And so I said, "Emo." He goes, "Andy Andrews, how are you? You old fan of coleslaw?" And so Ricky, and I said, Emo, this is Ricky Skaggs. Ricky, this is Emo Philips. And Ricky sticks his hand out to shake Emo's hand. And Emo does not take his hands out of his trench coat and shakes Ricky's hand through his trench coat. I saw it fell on the floor. I mean, the look on Ricky's face was priceless. And it's like, see you later, Emo. Polly says Emo was pandemic before pandemic, and that's exactly right. I mean,
Right.
but so I just can't ever figure out. I mean, because I've talked to other guys and I've said, have you ever seen him come out of character? Nope.
Well, maybe he's not in a character. Maybe that's what he is.
I know. Anyway, it's very funny. You want to follow a funny Twitter feed? Follow Emo. It's a funny Twitter feed.
Emo Philips. I will.
Yeah.
I will.
So, anyway, buddy, golly, please tell me you will do this with me more often. I don't want to keep you. Gosh, we've been on a while, but it has been awesome.
Always love talking to you and your sweet wife and kids and all of them. Tell them all I said, hey.
I will do it, Mark. I will do it. Hey, Mark, thank you so much for you are one of my you are one of my steadfast friends. You are a steadfast person. I always
you got to get more friends.
But I always know who I'm going to get when I call you. I always know, you are such a great encourager to me. You have such wise perspective and such deep thinking. I appreciate you more than I could say. So, buddy, thank you for being with us today.
Anytime. I love that you, when I asked you to be on my little show, you dropped everything and made it happen. So, and then we're both hunkering down. So what else we got to do?
Right. Love you, Marky. Thank you, man.
I love you too, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. You guys, I know you were just as excited about that as I was. And so please go ahead and share this to your page and join Mark on his shows. Please continue to join us on ours. We will let you know tomorrow some way what days we're going to do next week. We somehow, in all the chaos getting ready for this one, as we had the technical problems, we forgot to figure out what days we're going to do next week. But we will let you know and set your notifications so that you could be with us. We appreciate you very much. Appreciate your comments, and I'm going to try to get on later today and talk to some of you. So, another episode of Blue Tape Special in the books. Thank you, Mark, and thank you.